E konga iwi kato, e kanga mai nei ki! Oku poko! He tapu!
Well, Moi was born in Takapautai, which is in the East Cape district, and his dad was a guy called Te Omanga, and George Napier's son is named after him. He's his own father, Oma Napier. But Te Omanga was his dad. His mother was actually from Whareponga, whānau Mate, Taitanga Mate. And he grew up here in Ngati. And as a young man, he got involved in some of the skirmishes here, the local battles against the Hoho. The most famous battle he was involved in was the one at Pukemaide, where St. Mary's Church now stands. And I think he went through a phase in his life where cannibalism was the norm. Whether he partook of that, I'm not sure. It can be assumed that he took part in cannibalism. And he grew up within the Māori context of things Māori. And Te Reo Māori was his mother tongue, of course. But he grew up at a time when settlers were arriving on the coast. And so there were a lot of different whānau here, including the Kaas, including the Harrisons, the Rickards, all those names of the past of this location. He grew up at that time when Pākehās settled in Waiapu, the Limas, the Jose's. He grew up at that time. And the Atkins families, all those different, the Grants, they're all people from overseas, from sailing vessels that settled in Waiapu, married into Waiapu, and had families here. And he got caught up in that as well. When he grew up into a man, he had his first wife was from Whareponga, from his mother's side, from the whānau Taitanga Mate. And eventually he married a young lady from here, from Ngati. She was a goldsmith in about 1860. And she was from the goldsmith family. And they had 5 sons. But Moi was fortunate in that he took a liking to the Christian faith. And he made friends with the Williams family. And through that friendship, he eventually went to Traukahikatea in Gisborne and eventually became ordained in about 1860 as a deacon and eventually as a priest. And he had the fortune of baptizing Apira Ngata. When Ngata was born, his Ngata's father, Paratere, asked that Moi Ture baptize him, which he did in Rakitukia here. But Moi was concerned about the impact of the Christian faith on him as a Māori, because he interacted very closely with the whare wānanga of Tapatungia Whātonga. And he grew up he had a great friendship with one of the scholars from that Whare Wānanga, Peter Kapiti. And Moi's association with the Williams family led him to become skilled at reading and writing. And it is this skill that we as Ngati Porou are very lucky, because his ability to write has given us the stories of the beginnings of Ngati Porou. And most of these stories are recited to him by Peter Kapiti, a scholar from the Whare Wānanga of Taperenua Whātonga. And so in the book that we published, that's around here somewhere, we've recorded and noted the stories written by Moi as told to him by Peter Kapiti. The story of Horota, the story of the Kumara arriving in Rangitukia here, the story of Paikea, and the story of Takitimu. And also we recorded there the haka he composed, because he thought deeply about his people. He was concerned about the impact of Christianity on him as an individual, but also on his Māoritanga, on his tā Māori. And there was a conflict, philosophical conflict for him, maybe an ideological conflict as well. And here were his people of Rangitukia, tūturu Māori, and yet have gone over completely to the Christian faith, the Anglicanism in this case, and somehow it concerned him that his people had abandoned their Māoriness. And he thought deeply about this, so deeply that he was concerned about the juxtaposition of Māori faith being challenged by the Christian faith. And his response to that was to compose the haka Tihei Taruke. And that haka, I guess, I call it a theological reflection. But really it's also a theological response to the juxtaposition that the people of Rangitukia were in at the time, with the impact of the Christian faith on Māori Wairua, Māori Tika, and the challenge that caused to our people here. And so he composed that haka as a response to that. And the nub of the haka suggests that here is a template all the generations to come, a template for your future Christian life, or spiritual life rather than Christian life. And the template suggests that while you may go to any one of a dozen or so Christian faiths that are coming into Rangitukia, you must not forget your taha Māori. That's really the essence of that haka, Tihei Taruke. And so he says in the haka there about the upoko. Ko ngā iwi katoa e kagamai there, because he was of the view that the arrival of other faiths was a curse on the heads of the people here, was a damnation to us as a people, a challenge to us as a people. And he mentions in that haka, ko ngā iwi katoa e kangamaira, not actually cursing, but challenging our position spiritually as Māori in Rangitukia. And so, ki taku upoko, very important. He tapu, he's suggesting that it's so sacred that we mustn't do this to ourselves. Allow other faiths to tarnish us, to corrupt us, to change us. And that's the essence of that haka, Tihei Taruke. But in the end, he suggests that a model to satisfy the individual souls of the people of Rangitukia was to put the faiths in a crayfish pot, which is the name of the haka, taruke. Taruke is a crayfish pot. And he suggested that you can be whatever you want, Mormon, Jehovah, whatever, but you must not leave behind your taha Māori. So the template in that taruke has to be laced with taha Māori, with the Māori faith that came from our tikanga, came from our tipuna, came from Mairano. And so that's the essence of that haka, and it was of concern to Mohi about that kind of thing. We were lucky, I guess we were lucky, that he was able to write all that down. And he was able to record the kōrero from the whare wānanga through the scholar Peter Kapiti. And to understand Ngati Porou, you really need to understand the stories that he's written, particularly the one of Orota, the one of the Kumara, Paikea, and the hakas he composed. And that's a challenge to us. That's a challenge to future generations who call themselves Ngati Porou. And the vehicle for that challenge is Te Reo Māori. I refuse to translate all those stories. The problem with English is you filter our history through English language. You water it down. You change its dimension. You change its dynamics. You change its linguistic structure once you do that. And so I think we need to leave our epistemology located within the Māori world and not change it. And so those stories, anyone who wants to understand how to be Ngati Porou has to read it from a Māori perspective. And so my challenge, I guess, to the web page that we're putting out for future generations is that those stories of Mohi's need to go in there because they are foundational to being Ngati Porou. He saw literature or the writing of the language and broadcasting it to the world as a way for the future of Ngati Porou, as a vehicle, as a waka to take the message of being Māori to his people. And he was against Mormonism, and he wrote about that. He was against the Ringatu faith, and he wrote about that. He was against lots of things, and he wrote about it. So he was a prolific writer in Te Reo. Writing in Māori was really based on the narratives given to him by Peter Kapiti. Because now Peter Kapiti, if you in the stories that we published in that book, uses a narrative prose that's not regularly used today. And that's the challenge for future generations. It's no secret. None of that is secret. It's all open. It's available. There's no mystery about it. You just have to be patient and take your time and reading and rereading and rereading to understand. Yes, and there are words in there that are still foreign to a person like myself who's fluent in Te Reo. But they don't bother me because you look at a context and you get meaning from that context. And so the words that confront me for the first time or second time or third time are not a problem at all. But they use words, classical words, of the style used by Peter Kapiti. So linguistically, they're of a standard of a tertiary level standard of Te Reo Māori, the narratives in there, as opposed to the way I've written the introduction to that, that's ordinary language of today in Rangitukia. but the stories written by Mohi of a different standard altogether, and linguistically far in advance of my level of language. And that's a challenge to us, that to get meaning from those stories, you've got to read and reread and reread. And one of the things about Mohi, he doesn't give clear answers. He actually poses questions for the reader, poses questions for future generations or for his contemporaries to think about it. He comes from an era where wānanga was very much a learning tool rather than an individual dictating. So that's how he wrote a lot of his stuff, including the kōrero about the kumara. The questions there were for people to wānanga on as a process of finding answers. Not just individuals struggling on their own, but you need to talk about it as a group, as a whānau. So you get past the surface meaning to the deep structural meaning of the language used in the narratives given by Peter Kapiti to Mohi. And that's the challenge for future generations. The kumara is foundational to the people of Rangitukia particularly, and to Māori generally. And we've got lots of different stories of how the kumara arrived, but for us in Rangitukia, that's our story. And we stick by it, and we don't deviate from it. And it's important because it's part of us. And the kumara, the symbolism of the kumara goes back many years, and it has a long future ahead of it. It's under threat at the moment because other people are commercializing the cultivation of kumara, and the tikanga that our old people had when they were cultivating it doesn't exist, for example, in some of the plantations in that place up in north, Dargaville. It's very commercial. And America is very commercial as well. They call it the sweet potato. And in South America, it's sweet potato. It's very commercial. The tikanga is different. With our people, the tikanga was different. The tikanga espoused in those stories are very authentic. And one of the good things about it, it hasn't been filtered through the English language, so it's not watered down. It's as original as it came.